Hello and welcome. My name is Peace Mitchell and I'm co-founder of Osmompreneur, the Women's Business School and Women Changing the World Press. Before we begin today, I'd like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land that I live and work on, the Mamu people of North Queensland. And I'd like to pay my respects to traditional owners and elders past and present right across Australia and the Torres Strait. Well, we are here today to celebrate the launch of our new book, Women Leading the Way. This beautiful book contains inspiring stories, advice, and all kinds of tips and guidance for how to step into your leadership, and written by 29 women who are all exceptional leaders in their own right across a whole range of different industries. And today I have the great pleasure of chatting with a few of them about their chapter and their story and what leadership means to them. So I'd love to get things started right away by welcoming Megan Harrison to join me on stage. Please join me in welcoming Megan.
Hi.
Hi, Megan. How are you?
I'm so well. And how are you?
Yeah, really good, really good. Well, it's great to have you here, Megan. For people who haven't met you before, I'd love you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you and the work that you do.
Lovely. My name's Megan Harrison. I reside in Perth. I have two little kids and a new puppy on the way, which is very exciting. My background lies in mining, and I guess mining's wonderful, but when you have children, not so conducive. So when I got pregnant with my first child, I decided I needed to, I guess, step out of my comfort zone and try something a little bit different, and always had a bit of a entrepreneurial streak in me. So got pregnant, and that kind of gave me the push along to try something new. So I've had a couple of businesses, one which I've kind of spoken about in this book, which was SandSafe. When COVID hit, I saw a pretty significant opportunity to do something a little bit different. My background is in health and hygiene. And I started SandSafe, which was a sanitisation and disinfection company. And you can imagine during that time period, yes, it went very well. It was amazing. It scaled extremely quickly and really changed my life. It certainly has made me the leader I am now. And I feel like I certainly was thrown in the deep end with it, but I managed it and I enjoyed absolutely every second of it. So much so that now that obviously the COVID stuff's dying down, I've just launched a new company called For My Sisters, and it's an organic biodegradable period care company with a focus on predominantly mining, but also schools and workplaces, providing biodegradable options so people out in remote communities, exploration, rail camps, things like that can have access to product when and if they need it with no barriers, which I'm thoroughly enjoying. It's fantastic.
That's amazing, Megan, and congratulations on all of your success with your businesses. It's been amazing to watch that journey. Megan, we're here today to talk about your chapter, and your chapter title was Dare to Become More Than Mediocre. Can you tell us a bit about that title and what it means to you?
Yeah, I guess I see, and I think we would all, women in general, we all tend to be quite happy just plodding along and doing what we've got to do, raising our kids, being wonderful wives, having wonderful friendship groups. And we all have the capacity to do that and do that pretty easily. And I think to really challenge yourself and be a little bit more than that is something that's really hard, but we've all got it in us. And I think sort of that mindset is something that I think can and should drive women just to, be a little bit more than they think they can be, because we all know that we're more fabulous than we think we are. We just need to get out there and want to be a little bit more than the mediocre person.
I loved your chapter. I loved that there's a quote from it that I wrote down. Even from a young age, I knew that I didn't want a normal life. And I just love that so much. You've always known that it wasn't your destiny to just be normal and fit in and just settle for, a simple life. that
Yeah.
that it knew.
And I think that kind of started, like I was quite into my sport when I was younger. And as soon as I started competitive sport, I knew there was something else in me. You know, like I would really, that drive for success through sport was really strong for me. I trained hard, I raced hard, and at that point, you know, and no one else was. And I was like, but why aren't you training more? Because that would mean you would get better. It's pretty simple, right? But no, everyone else had just plodded along, and I was always the one that was, you know, if I just do a little bit more, I'll be better. And why wouldn't I want to do that? You know, it seems so simple.
Yeah.
And that was kind of early or late primary school, early high school when I sort of exposed myself to that sporting realm. And I think genuinely, like for my girls, I cannot wait to get them into sport. Like I feel like for me, that was a really pivotal time in growing up, learning how to be a team member, learning how to be a leader within that sporting team, learning that hard work equals good results. Things don't come easily. Like all those key messages through sport, I think are so parallel with business. It's unbelievable. And yeah, so I think it started young, and then just surrounding myself with people that I didn't really know at the time, but I had a lot of fabulous people in my life, and I just didn't really realize it. You know, these are family members that they're your family. Of course, you're close to them and you hang out with them. And it wasn't until I got asked to do this chapter that I looked back and went, wow, I think those people actually have kind of formed who I am. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So it was actually really nice for me to look back on that as well.
And I love in your chapter that you talk about your auntie, Auntie Jennifer, and such an impact that she had on your life in those teenage years. Yeah. And I think, you know, when you talk about you knew that you didn't want a normal life, I think when you were looking at Auntie Jennifer's life and her friends and all of the incredible things she was doing, it was so inspiring for you. Can you tell us a bit about Auntie Jennifer? I'd love to hear more about her.
Yeah, she was a very eccentric character. She wore different coloured pants with different coloured T-shirts with necklaces bigger than you can imagine. She was a commissioner and very academically savvy, but also extremely personable, kind and generous. Every cent she made, she would take me traveling. We traveled around the world together. She took me to New York and India and Africa and Uluru. Everything she had on her bucket list, she wanted to do with me. She didn't have her own daughter. And I was, of course, happy to go along with that movement. That was fabulous. And yeah, she just did wonderful things. She owned lots of property and she invested well, and she, you know, she was just and very pro women. You know, from a very young age, you know, she encouraged me and helped me along the way with buying my first property. I think I was 20 when I bought my first little unit here in Perth, and it was her that kind of, you know, assisted in helping me do that. And I think she gave me the vision that life doesn't have to be normal. You know, like she had this really cool, amazing, high-level job, but she traveled for 8 weeks of the year. She socially had so many friends, and I thought you can be amazing, but also kind of have everything. You know, she can do it. Why can't I do it? And then I guess along the way, being exposed to all of her friends who similarly lived like her. Yeah, and I think, again, at the time, that was just Auntie Jennifer. It didn't really mean anything. And then she passed away just a few weeks before my first daughter was born, and I named my daughter Ruby Jennifer. And I think when she passed, I really went, oh, gosh, and then did this book. I was like, wow, she really did have a huge impact on me. And it wasn't until I sat down and reflected on that I kind of realised. So, no, she's very missed, and I know she'd be super proud of me. So I've engaged a few of her best friends to have a little soft launch at my place with the book, sort of knowing that she'll be here with us, looking and cheering and drinking lots of Prosecco. So all good.
Oh, I love it. I love it. She sounds like an absolutely incredible woman, and just so beautiful that she took you under her wing and that really formative time in your life. It's beautiful.
for sure.
Yeah. So in your chapter, you also talk about 5 things that have, been big for you in leadership. The first one, surrounding yourself in people you can learn from. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I think that, look, and again, every leader knows that. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room. We all know that. We want to learn, and I know that everyone listening and everyone that's involved in this book would be the same. You everywhere you go, you are there to learn and become better. And I think putting yourselves into situations where you are surrounded with people like that is imperative to growth. I love stepping out of my comfort zone. I say yes to everything. I am always intrigued with who people are and what they do and why they are where they are. I'm always surprised at, I'll go out with different groups of friends, and the first thing I'll say, like, what's happening? Like, how's work? What's happening? And often people won't ask me. And I think that happened not so much now, but, through that early 20s, I craved to know what people were doing and why they were doing it and who they involved with. And then I would get home and I'd be like, oh, nobody asked me what I was kind of doing, like, I think, again, a lot of people, that we talk about our kids and our dogs and how school going and all that stuff. But I'm far more interested in what the women of the group are doing and who they're involved with and why they're doing what they're doing. And I think if you surround yourself with the right people, and we all know that contacts in business, go a very long way, and you've got to be good at networking and putting yourself out there and, surrounding yourselves with interesting people, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. You never know where a connection can take you.
Absolutely.
Opportunities. So you talk about also striving to be a hard ass with a soft heart. I love this advice. Can you tell us what it means to you?
I think I developed this kind of thought in my time in mining. Like, you deal with a lot of men who are hard ass. They drive hard tasks. They've got this persona that they have to live up to. They're a hard-nosed miner. They're now a manager. They want the best team in their mine site, blah, blah, blah. But then I also note that all of my hard-ass managers were so kind. They would always, at the end of the day, they'd go, what's happening? How's your mum and dad? And what are you up to? And do you need any time off? And they always had this really strong exterior, but were genuinely, as we know, leaders have to have a soft touch, because you're dealing with people. If you want people to respect you, you have to gain that respect. And that takes a bit of that soft touch. And I just think I was exposed to that and thought, you know what? My favorite leaders that I've had in my working career were all like that. They were hard taskmasters, but they were also super kind and actually cared about me as a person. And that's the type of leader I guess I want to be. Not too hard ass, but, drive a hard bargain, I reckon.
Yeah. Awesome. Your third one is to be different and to be confident in that difference. Tell us about that.
Yeah. And I think this kind of even comes with sort of my personality, like even the clothes that I wear, and I just like to be a little bit different. I think maybe that comes from Auntie Jennifer too. Like, she always stood out in a crowd. Everyone wanted to talk to her because she was a little bit different. She wasn't like everyone else. And I think if you can own that, then awesome. And that's something that I always strive to do, I guess. Like, if I like it, who cares? Like someone else, if they don't like it, cool. Be confident, get out there, and whether it's the clothes you're wearing or the opinions you have or the business idea that you're rolling out or whatever it might be, if you're confident in it, others will be too. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, I love that. Number 4 is to always bring others up with you. Tell us about it.
So important. I mean, what's a business, having companies that you're by yourself and not bringing people with you? Like, I want to be successful, but I want everyone around me to be successful, because that feeling of success, although it's hard to get there. Once you get there, it's such an amazing journey. And why wouldn't you want every woman around you to be part of that? I wish every school mum that I see each morning could live the life I do, because I'm so fortunate. I can drop the kids, pick them up every day. I do parent helper all the time. I obviously work from home. It's fantastic. And if I can help to lift people up with me and provide others with opportunities or ideas, or, of course, gosh, success is boring on your own. You want to be surrounded by people that can feel that sense and be part of it with you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And your final one, allow your leadership to evolve. Tell us about that.
And I think this kind of over time, obviously I started off my leadership journey when I was pretty young, and I didn't really know. My leadership style was based off the leaders I had, and that I pulled things from each of those leaders and went, I liked that about him, so I'll do that. I liked that about her, so I'll do that. And you've got to keep growing. There's always, you'll come across people and theories and comments, and you've got to be able to progress with your leadership style. And maybe that is just with age. I don't know whether it's a combination of age, experience, exposures. But you must, because once you become stagnant in your leadership style, I'm assuming that people around you become pretty stagnant too. Keep on your toes and change your style up when needed. And probably that also alters with the type of business you're running or the type of people you're engaging with. But yes, certainly be fluid in your type of leadership style, and I think it will serve people very well.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Megan. It's been wonderful chatting with you today, and thank you so much for your chapter in Women Leading the Way. The link to order a copy for people who are watching today is, we'll put it in the comments, so you can pre-order a copy of our book. But thank you so much for being here,
Thanks,
Megan.
guys. Thanks so much.
Looking forward to hearing about how your launch goes in Perth as well. Sounds beautiful.
Wonderful. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. I'd now like to welcome our next guest to join us. Please join me, Helen.
Hi, Peace. How are you?
I'm good, Helen. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Helen, for people who haven't met you before, I'd love you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you and the work that you do.
So I'm Helen Waite, and I'm an occupational therapist. I am a single mum of 3 gorgeous teenage boys who are my world. And I have Australia's first and only occupational therapy franchise business, and I now have franchisees across 4 states, so nearly national. And I love what I do. I love making a difference in the lives of people, whether that be my clients or whether that be the lives of the OTs and physio and therapy assistants that I have on board on my team. So I feel like I'm the luckiest girl in the world. I've just created this amazing world around myself, and I'm taking a lot of people on the journey with me.
Yeah, congratulations on everything you've achieved with your franchise as well. It's pretty incredible to see that you've rolled out to 4 states now. Well done.
Yeah. Yep.
So your chapter was Don't Be Defined by Your Story, Write Your Own. And it's all about, taking back that power and changing the narrative, I guess. Do you want to tell us a bit about your story?
Yeah. For me, it's all about resilience. I guess I grew up in a very emotionally abusive household. I think the abuse was passed down from my parents because that's the environment they grew up in and may not necessarily have had that insight. And I grew up feeling like there was something wrong with me and I was never, ever quite good enough. And as a little girl, I was often told I was bossy, and for me, that was just natural leadership qualities, but it was made to feel like there was something wrong with me, just like I was always told that I would never take no for an answer. Like that was something wrong with me. But I just know that was my entrepreneurial spirit, and I still don't take no for an answer because I always believe there is a better way, and that's how we move forwards, and that's how we grow, and that's how we make change in the world. So I was really, really ashamed and wanted to hide my upbringing and my background. I felt like there was something wrong with me, and I always drive to be like everyone else, a bit opposite of what Megan was talking about, really. Where she knew that she wanted to stand out and be different, and I didn't. I just wanted to blend in because I was so tired of being different and being made to feel that there was something wrong with me. But the one thing that I have realised, which I've written about in my chapter, is that my story is my superpower, and I hope that by sharing it with others that I can inspire them so that they don't need to be defined in terms of where they've come from. They can rewrite the story for the future for themselves.
Yeah. There's a quote from your chapter that I loved. You said, "The moment I realized I was never going to get the validation I wanted, no matter how hard I tried, is when everything changed and I understood the problem was with them, not me." And I feel like that was such a transformational moment for you.
It really was, because I had the tendency, and sometimes I still do, and I have to catch myself because it's a really learned behaviour, just to really internalise what's going on. So if there is a problem out there, what have I done wrong? Why is this happening to me? And I think that that's probably a common trait for a lot of women as well. Maybe it is the way we've been brought up. But then I've realised with self-reflection, it's not all about me. It's not all about you. You have to take on board what is about you and analyse that, and that's how we learn and grow, but not internalise everything, that the problem's with me. I tried for years to try and fix the relationships. I tried for years to try and fix things with my family, and was in constant turmoil and constant drama, and it was really, really stressful. And I think that's probably where I internalised my stress and ended up with a lot of health issues, autoimmune health issues. But it's really when I realised, hey, this isn't about me. They have got problems and issues that I have no control over and I can't fix. It's time for me to focus on me and the things that I can change in life, and go out and create the life that I want for myself in the future, and not be defined by what's happened in the past, or be defined by their behaviour, or controlled or limited by their behaviours. I think that's a really important lesson to share.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, your story is so interesting. You went to university, you studied to be an OT.
Yes.
But when you graduated, you joined the convent and became a nun. I was so surprised when I read that. I was not expecting that plot twist at all. Can you tell us a bit about that?
I guess it's a very interesting part of the story. So I'd done 2 years of my university degree and then decided to enter the convent. I had more freedom in the convent than I ever had at home. So that has to speak volumes. And it was a very traditional order where they wore the full habit. It was a semi-contemplative order. So for me, saying I had more freedom in the convent than I did at home has to speak volumes, really. And I guess I was brought up in a really strong, Catholic family, and I'm very grateful for those values. For me, it's what's in your heart and how you live your life that really matters. But I think that really shaped my values, and I talk a lot about values. And I felt like the values that I was being preached at weren't being lived in the family environment. So I went out seeking that sort of world. And maybe I'm a really idealistic person, but I was seeking to live those values. And I thought, well, convent, that's the way they're going to live. Unfortunately, it didn't quite eventuate. Maybe I am too idealistic. I realised there was still a lot of corruption within the convent, and they weren't necessarily living the way they were preaching to live, and I became quite disillusioned. And I know that the subject of religion can be really, really divisive. So needless to say, for me, it's what's in your heart and how you live your life. That's really, really important. And religion can be quite man-made and all the rules around that. So I strive to live by those values, and I wasn't finding that in the convent. So hence, I left. So I had spent 1 year as a candidate, 1 year as a postulant, 2 years as a novice, and I had made my first vows, and I lived by those vows for a year. And at the end of that year, I just chose not to renew them. So it's not like I left in shame or, had broken any rules or anything, but realised it just wasn't necessarily for me, but really had no idea of where my path was going to lead me. And as I left the convent, I had no social support network, because growing up I wasn't allowed to have friends. I wasn't allowed to play sport. I wasn't allowed to have a part-time job, because if I had friends, I'd have a social support network. If I had a part-time job, I'd have financial means. And once again, that would give me some level of independence and control. And that was what was taken away from me. And that's how my parents controlled me. And obviously in the convent, there was that level of control that I had to give up. So I had no friends. I had no social support network. I wasn't close with my family. So, you know, someone came along and said, hey, you know, I love you and I want to marry you. I want to have children with you. What are you going to do? You know, like, it's the next chapter of your life. And perhaps I wasn't ready. Perhaps I was too naive, but I wouldn't have my 3 gorgeous boys today if it wasn't for that. And that's part of, you know, my story, and it's part of my learnings in life.
Yeah. Gosh, I feel like you've been on such a personal development and personal growth journey throughout your life, overcoming such a strict childhood with such critical parents, and then, you know, the very constrictive nature of being in the convent. Yeah, the lessons that you've learned and the things you've had to overcome to get you to where you are today is huge. It's huge. What has been the things that have helped you get to where you are today?
In some ways I try not to beat myself up, because I think I got there a bit slowly, but maybe that's because I was brought up, you know, really, really, you know, naively. I've worked really hard to make sure that my children have maintained their innocence, but they're not naive. And I think there's a real difference between that. I didn't really have any role models. I've had to work it all out myself, but there have been some really life-changing connections that I've made. And, you know, I love Brené Brown in terms of her vulnerability, and it's only when we're vulnerable and we can let our walls down that we can actually let people in and have that connection. And I think over time I was always thirsting for that connection and finally got the courage to actually do that. So I've met some amazing women along the way who have really inspired me. Life-changing for me was doing the Lead ID course with Tamsin Simmons. She's just such an inspiring young woman, and it made me realise that my bossiness was actually leadership qualities, and helped me hone my leadership and helped me develop my own confidence and my sense of self, and get things straight in my head, as I say. So that's been really empowering. And then from there, everything has just kind of snowballed, because I've realised, I guess, the formula to work it out. I don't really know another way of saying that, but just surrounding yourself by key inspiring people. And I do firmly believe if you're not inspired by the people that you surround yourself with, then you're really in a cage.
Mm-hmm. So you talk about in your chapter knowing that your biggest challenge is also your superpower. Can you tell us what that means?
It's like I was saying before, I've really felt ashamed of where I came from. I felt inadequate. I felt really not good enough. But I've actually realised by owning my story has helped me heal from what has happened to me. And by sharing it to others, sharing it with others to help empower them, that is where my superpower lies. And having that empathy and that understanding, I am able then to help others transform and change their lives and make a massive difference in their lives. And that's what I feel like I'm really doing with the activity franchise as well. I'm able to make such a difference in the lives of these amazing women, and I say predominantly women because occupational therapy is a 90% female profession. So I do have a few males on board, but it's predominantly women. And I'm showing them that they can have it all. They can have a family. They can have a professional career. They can earn lots of money. They don't need to feel guilty about that. And the way in which I've set the franchise up is really that I put the occupational therapist at the centre of everything that we do. And it's whatever they need to succeed and whatever success looks like for them. So I'm not bringing someone in to fit the mould of what I think it should be. It's very, very centred around them. And I don't think I would be able to do that if I hadn't had my own experiences and didn't have that confidence within myself. Because I think everyone's fighting demons. Everyone's had some trauma as they've gone along, and everyone, you know, is confused and working it out as we go along in life. I don't think any of us have got it all together. And it's just a matter of making sure that I create a really safe environment so people can feel open and share that, and they can share their dreams and their hopes, and I can help them achieve that, not just in a business sense. I look at my people holistically, and perhaps I do that because I am an OT, and that's how we're trained to look at people holistically. So I help them pull it all together so they can live the dream life that they want to live whilst being an OT, I guess, is the way that it works. And it just keeps going from strength to strength. I think there's a real need out there, and it resonates with people.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I'm just looking at the comments, and Lisa Benson has said, so many people will resonate with your story, Helen. And yeah, I feel like it's true. You know, everyone has experienced trauma in some way and have had to overcome something like that. Yeah.
I just thought I'd have the courage and put it out there, and if I can help just, one other person, then it's definitely been worth it, because I think otherwise we can just still feel so alone in this world. But I think by sharing not just the highlight reels, but sharing the behind the scenes of what really goes on in people's lives can actually help empower others. And I know I really felt that last year at the Osmompreneur conference when I was listening to Natasha share her story, and I was just like, wow, that is just so inspiring, and that helped me as well. So I think, well, if I can, pay it forward and try and help someone else, for me, that's so important.
Oh, that's so beautiful. So beautiful. In the book, you say, believe that you can rise from almost anything. And I feel like you are living proof of that. You've overcome so much in your life.
I have, from nearly dying, being a single mum, divorce, the abuse from my childhood. Like, it doesn't matter what life throws at me. I think it is a mindset, and we can choose to be a victim, or we can choose to just keep learning and pushing forwards and rising from that. And that's the message that I'd like to get across to people. Like, don't let life bring you down. Go out and create the life that you want for yourself. It's within your power. It might take time, it might take hard work. You need support, you need connection, but you can do this. You can.
I love that so much. Well, thank you for being with us today, Helen. I've really loved chatting with you today, and I loved your chapter in Book, Women Leading the Way. And I hope everybody orders a copy and reads your story, because it's a very powerful story of overcoming all of those things to be the incredible leader you are today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for helping me share the story.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Thank you, Helen.
Thanks, Peace.
All right. I'd now like to welcome our next speaker to the stage. Judy, please join me.
Hello, Peace. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, Judy. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
So, Judy, for people who haven't met you before, I would love you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about who you are and the work that you do.
My name is Judy Chongwood. I'm married. I've got a beautiful 9-year-old daughter and a funny and street smart husband. I also founded Skin B5 after being a town planner for almost 10 years. Skin B5 is now a global brand that offers effective and holistic skincare treatment for people who suffer from skin problems, especially acne and skin inflammation, etc. How it came about was really a personal journey. I used to suffer from mysterious skin issues as a child. When I turned into a teenager, naturally, as a rite of passage, I started suffering from acne, and then it just persisted for a very long time. And I started using all sorts of products that, like any other person who was experienced at breakout, will go to supermarket, buy cheap products, buy really high-end products, and nothing worked. So out of sheer frustration, I started doing a lot of research and come across vitamin B5 supplements, and I started experimenting on myself with the nutrient, and lo and behold, I cleared up my skin. It was one of those things, almost like a magical miracle moment. And so that's actually when I really first time in my life, it was in my 20s, I've just felt this kind of like a blinding epiphany, I guess, that this is what I want to do. I'm going to help other people to overcome their skin problems. And here I am today.
Oh, it's amazing, Judy. And I love your products. I use Skin B5 myself. So yeah, I can attest to how wonderful they are. Really beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So your chapter is called More Than Skin Deep, and it really talks about your journey through your life. So I didn't realize, but you grew up in the Solomon Islands as a young girl. Can you tell us what that was like?
It's such a magical way to grow up. Looking back, I really believe it's, I guess really my background of growing up in Solomon Islands with literally nothing. Like, I guess for people who haven't been to Solomon Islands, describing it as a third world is not even that. It's really back to the basics. Like I remember growing up, I had to make all my toys because there's no materials around. There's no such thing as, a toy that just comes straight off, you pull out from a shelf of the store. So we had to make everything ourselves. So I make little bin bags, I make little toys. So I guess that way of, and obviously surrounded by nature, I had so many animals, we had to make our own fishing rods and we fish all day after school, and schooling is almost next to, I guess it's a great way to grow up because there's no homework pressure. Every day my memory is always just, I go to school, play with friends, then come home and play some more. But I guess what it really gave me when I'm reflecting back later in life, it's really give me the sense of like really grounding me. I don't see, like, obviously you need money and materials to survive in this world, but I always have this sense life is much more than materials. Having a sense of purpose, having a sense of wonder when you look at around the world around you and people around you. I guess that sense of being real, what's meaningful in life, is what my childhood gave me. It's a magical way to grow up with, I guess, not much around you.
It sounds like it was so beautiful. So it was quite a shock for you when you had to move to Hong Kong and then you went to boarding school in Macau. Can you tell us a bit about that time in your life?
Yeah, it's almost, I guess it's very confusing. Like when I look back on it, I still, that whirlwind change of scenery, I guess, in my life, because I went from being a very, I guess, carefree sort of life growing up with, my mum and my dad had amazing businesses. They earned really good money. Like I still remember every year we get to even live in Solomon Islands. Every year we get to have family holidays, going to all sorts of places. And, like my husband would look at photos of myself in the airport when I was 3-4 years old. And they said, wow, back in, how can you have so many family trips on holidays? But that's basically because they had really successful businesses. So when my mum said, "Oh, we're moving back to Hong Kong, Macau," I thought, "Oh, it could be just another family holiday." But I realized something is not quite right. It's going on because all of a sudden, I was touring a Catholic boarding school. I was wondering, why am I here? Then before I know it, my sister and I just end up there all by ourselves in a boarding school. So I guess, I still remember, it's almost my sister and my mum was nowhere to be seen. My dad was not there. Have no idea what's going on. We just left there in a boarding school, and obviously that ended up, we thought it could be just a week, but it ended up basically 18 months. So it was quite a, I guess, traumatic beginning of a long period of time that we lived that way. It has no home, basically. Obviously, later on, I found out it's because my dad got into trouble, and my mum had to go sort things out. So it's I guess there's a lot of things happen in the background that I still don't fully understand, but I always want to look on the bright side when things don't go well. And that period of time really brought my sister and I very close, because we only had each other to rely on. The Catholic, I can really relate to what Helen said just before listening to what she said. the Catholic school experience at the boarding school, it's almost like one of those stereotypical movies. It was really harsh, physical punishments on a daily basis, even as simple as things like not being able to read. Because when we moved back to Hong Kong, we didn't know how to read the Chinese language. So I still remember I was really angry when I saw my sister, because she ended up in the same class with me, couldn't read a line in Chinese, and she really basically physical punishment was a consequence. So yeah, it was a really difficult time of my life. Things like you have to even scrub the floor every day. It's not it's not those fancy boarding school that you imagine.
And so after you finished school, you went to university in Sydney, and you tell us about that time. And it was kind of, you talk about it's kind of out of duty.
What happened was, when I finished boarding school, eventually my mum and dad came back. So they came back to, obviously, must be around, I think I was 15 or 16. She started asking me whether or not I want to go overseas to study, and I just straight away said, I'm going, because I guess I just have a feeling inside me that I need to be free. I want to break away from whatever's happening, the chaos that's happening inside the family. So I moved to New Zealand first, and I ended up in Sydney. So that was very interesting, but when I left, I clearly remember, and I understood, because I come from I guess my mom is a very traditional Asian family. There's always expectation that your child is an extension of her life. So very early on, she always told us that that she's investing a lot of, she's doing this and doing this because she's investing in her future. So I always understood my life is not always my own, because there's an expectation from my mom that I love dearly and I want to look after her, that I'm meant to deliver these things for her future, like get a university degree, get a good job, and then therefore lead to a decent career, stable life, stable income. So I guess when I founded SkinBee5, so the town planning profession, which I did very well in and earned very good money from even as a junior town planner, gave her a lot of pride and satisfaction. So when I announced one day that I'm going to start my own skincare business, it was a very shock for her, a big shock for her, and quite a big disappointment, I think, because she knew that I was a very strong-minded person. She wouldn't say it to me, but she would tell everyone else around her that she's really worried about me. She doesn't know what I'm doing. Even I still remember 5 years into my entrepreneur journey, she still asked me, when are you going to find a new job?
Oh, no. But really, SkinBee5, with SkinBee5, you've really found your passion. And in your chapter, you talk about the fact that, you used to go to the bookshop and you were never looking for books about planning. It was always about skincare and, and those sort of things instead. When did you know that you wanted to do something in the skincare industry?
I actually didn't know, but I've always been really passionate about biology and chemistry. I think a lot of that got to do with the fact that my grandfather, who was a trained chemist, I grew up watching him mixing different things together, and I knew he was making his own hair care products, skincare products, and I still remember everyone around us always said, your grandfather's made the best products. And he's also very, very, I guess everything is about holistic medicine. Everything is about food as a medicine. So I guess growing up with him has always inspired that, when you have something's not quite right with your health or with your body, you have to approach it holistically and working with your body, not fighting against it. So I've always been really interested in, obviously, having my own skincare problem. I think that's actually when I started to pay a lot of attention to my skin. and when I couldn't find anything that helped myself, and that's why I started looking at different ways of treating my skin, because I've always been really interested in holistic medicine. So when I was up in the US for the first 8 months, I tagged along with my partner at the time. He's got a international transfer and he moved there, and I tagged along, but at the time I didn't realize I wouldn't be able to work. So for 8 months, because of my visa restriction up in the US, I couldn't work. So the way to occupy myself was go reading. So obviously I naturally would just start reading about things I'm really passionate about, which is alternative health and nutritional medicine. And I guess I start reading a lot of things about vitamins. And that's actually why when I come across vitamin B5 to treat acne, I just immediately drawn to it, because I thought I haven't read anything about this for skin, and I used it myself. And I guess the rest is history. So I guess, I really have to credit my grandfather for a lot of the inspirations and that knowledge of that body, body, mind, the holistic concept, I guess.
Yeah, I love that so much. I love that, Judy. Thank you so much for being our guest today, Judy. I've really enjoyed chatting with you and hearing more about your story and growing up in the beautiful Solomon Islands and everything you've learnt along the way. Your chapter is in here in Women Leading the Way. If you'd like to read more about Judy's story, make sure you grab a copy of our new book. Thank you so much, Judy. It's been wonderful sitting with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd now like to welcome our final guest for today, Lisa Walker. Please join me on stage, Lisa.
Hi, Peace. How you going?
I'm good. It's wonderful to have you here, Lisa. For people who haven't met you before, I would love you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you and the work that you do.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Lisa Walker. I live in Canberra and I run a number of healthcare businesses with my beautiful business partner who you've heard about this morning, Natasha. And so we provide services like nurses into aged care, hospital, disability services throughout the ACT region.
Wonderful. And your chapter was called Natural Born Leader. So I'd love to hear a bit more about that. Tell us why you chose that title.
So I chose that one very similar to Helen's story, actually, when she was just speaking. I was always called bossy and, always was, forever, bossing around my brothers and my Barbie dolls. And so for me, like I've always just kind of seen what needs to be done or worked a path forward and worked out what we needed to do. And so, I can either sit back and wait for someone to take those reins or just make it happen. And quite often, it is just, it's in my nature just to go, come on, let's get this done and take the leadership and move on.
Yeah. And I love in your chapter, you talk about management versus leadership. And when Katie and I first had the vision for this book, Women Leading the Way, we were wanting to tell the story of what feminine leadership is and what it looks like. And I think when you talked about that management versus leadership, you really illustrated that really beautifully. Can you tell us a bit more about what you see as management versus leadership?
Yeah, sure. So my first, I'll say, real job was as an undergraduate in an accounting firm, 5 partners at the firm, all male. And so as I started to move up the ranks and had people working to me, they would say to me, you need to rule with an iron fist, you need to be tough, you need to be hard, you need to put them in their place and that kind of thing, which is such a male way of leadership or real management. Whereas for me, I was like, no, I need to, I talk about in my chapter, lead with a golden heart. And that was recognizing my team, recognizing their strengths, and then, getting them to contribute and really be part of the solution to any issues that kind of came up. And by doing that softer approach, or as I would have thought, more feminine approach, the opportunities came for those guys. And so they wanted to work with me. And all of a sudden we were the top earners in the firm, which was really interesting. And my team just did amazing things and kicked all kinds of awards and goals. So it was really great.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. Your next point is that you don't have to be friends with your whole team to lead. Can you tell us what you mean by that?
Yeah, sure. So this is a big one. Like, I guess for me growing up, I was, I was the people pleaser. I was always the kid that wanted to be friends with everybody. But, I just, again, it's very similar to Helen's story. I just didn't feel I fit in anywhere. So, maybe it was because I was too bossy. But so for me, a lot of the time I didn't, I don't need to be friends with the people on my team. I think work with empathy, work with compassion, and definitely, some of those really strong personal traits that really become our voice and really become the ethics of our business and our values. To me, that was really important. And so we're just, I don't have to be friends with them. I just have to understand their situation, make sure they can get a job done and lead them the way, lead us forward to get to the task done or whatever we need to do. And I guess that brings a lot of respect with it as well. I'm not here to just be your friend. I'm here to let's get done what we need to get done.
Yeah, I love that. Your third point is to be real. Plan for the worst, but hope for the best. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think one of the big things that I did do a nearly 10-year stint in government, and which is federal government especially, which is so risk adverse. And so coming into these businesses, when I overtook from my parents, I really put in some policies and procedures. And I think the risk management side of things is a really big one, where we're our bug points and that type of thing. And when I walked in, we had no insurances. We had literally workers' comp. There was no other medical malpractice insurance, and we had nurses on the floor, with people on palliative care and, giving out, high-level medications and all that kind of thing. And I was like, So, for me, it was really, really important to get the fundamentals and basics in place. So then what I wanted to do is surround us with really good people who are very like-minded. So every single one of our business partners that we choose to work with, such as our accountants, our solicitors, our employment advisors, our insurance brokers, they have all been handpicked. And quite a few of them are in similar situation, women in business and that type of thing as well. They're mums and that type of thing too. So we handpick those people to be part of our broader team. So that's your plan for the worst and hope for the best. The next part is obviously getting the right team around us and making sure that we have the right values and ethics on the people that we're hiring on our team too, so that they meet our our base requirements, and that we'd never put somebody out for care who we wouldn't have look after ourselves, which is very, very important to us. One of the other things that I also really wanted to be big with is it's okay to say no to a client. If we don't have the same values as that client, rejecting that level of work, or if they're not going to treat our staff with the dignity and respect that they deserve, I'm not going to put them in that situation either. So that's very, very important to me, is to look after my team too. And again, it's just another one of those cutting those risk factors out.
Yeah, and that can be difficult to do sometimes.
Absolutely.
To turn down a client. But if they're not a good fit for your values and they don't align, then that is the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
So the next thing you talk about is the importance of knowing your superpowers and also knowing your team's superpowers. Why is this so important?
So I've tried to do it all, as I'm sure many of us women in business have, or just small businesses in general. So, we've tried to do everything new. It's quite funny. We'll get somebody will call up, can I be accounts department? Yep, that's me. Can I pay HR? Yep, I'm here. And so it is really that whole, we've tried to do it ourselves. So I think I've come, as we've grown the businesses, especially since, over the last 12 months, Natasha and I were just reflecting on it, I think last night, over the 12 months, we have definitely grown and started to pull in people with their superpowers. So, we have an amazing people and culture lead manager on now. We've got a clinical manager who manages our clinical team. We've got our support coordinator manager. We've got our amazing admin person. We realized we could not do this and keep it at the level that it was. So pull in the people that you need, or if you don't want, if it's not at a stage where your business is able to take on employees, definitely outsource to other like-minded people as well. And this is back to the risks and that type of thing as well, is outsource to the people that that you can trust, because you can't do it all. 2 heads, 3 heads, or 4 are always going to be better than one, and many hands make the work lighter as well. So even if you do have to pay a small amount or contribute something back to get those services in the short term, then obviously it is definitely worthwhile. And they feel, especially on your team, by using their superpowers, they feel empowered. If you've hired them for what they're really good at and they enjoy what they do, they're only going to do a good job, and that helps build loyalty on your team as well. So for me, that's been a huge factor, is making sure, we quite often talk to our team members and say, what do you want to do? Is there something different that you like? Or if they come to us and say, look, I think I'm going to be moving on, we go, okay, well, but they say to us, we love working with you, but I don't see that there's anything for me to move. We'll make something for them if that's the case. We'll go, okay, let's think about how we can do this, or what we can offer you, or would this suit your needs, or whatever you might do as well. And so they feel valued and will do an amazing job as well. And so that, to me, it's only win-win. They get to stay within the organisation that they love. We treat them really well. They love doing what they do, and so it only benefits all of us.
I love that so much. And it just, recognizing your team and their superpowers and their strengths, it really leads into your next point, which is build the next leaders. Can you tell us
absolutely
the next leaders?
Yeah, look, this is probably my most favorite one. I write in the book that recently I was nominated for 4 categories in 2 very prestigious award programs, and I was nominated for 4 in both. And when I did pop that up on my social media, the amount of people who came out of the woodwork was really humbling. I didn't realize so many people, I had made an impact on so many people in all different facets of my business, my career, right through from owning the accounting firm to working in government and through to now. And so, some of the words that came through, and I'd always encourage and work with my people, and I can always see leadership qualities in them as well. And so I'll always encourage them, you can do this, you've got this, and lift them up, be their cheerleader. And as I know, probably for the 5th mention today, Miss Natasha, she's sitting over at my desk. She has, oh gosh, you're so funny. She's, probably one of my favorite success stories as well, and her own massive success story in the fact that, we take good people with you. And that's one big thing that I'm always a big believer in, is none of us can do it alone. So grab the people that meet the same values and morals that you've got, and take them along with you on your journey, because you'll become part of theirs as well. If you told us probably 5 years, 8 years ago where this would be now, we would have laughed at you. Definitely so honoured to be a part of all the leadership journeys I've been part of, and to build them too. I think it's, for me, the biggest thing is all the female leaders that I had growing up, and there weren't many, especially throughout my career, they were all scared I was going to take their job. I was younger, I was, smarter. I didn't have children a lot of the time. And so, oh gosh, she can spend more time at work. But I had an amazing mentor at the accounting firm I worked at. She actually had twins. She was a mum of twins, and worked only 3 days part-time in school hours once they'd had hit kindergarten. And she was the most productive in the place. And if, because she only had a certain amount of hours and a certain amount of, time and tasks to get done, I knew I could ask her anything and it would be done, or she'd have the answer for me. And so, what they say, give a busy person a job, give a busy mum a job. And I'm sure it comes back. So, she was an amazing mentor, but every other female that I worked with, they just wanted to squash you down, whereas I am, or have always since that time, been about bringing them up and empowering the next leaders.
Yeah, oh, I love that so much, Lisa. And thank you so much for being here today. I've really enjoyed chatting with you more about your leadership style, and you truly are a natural born leader. Really are.
Thank you.
Congratulations on everything that you've achieved. So here's our book, Women Leading the Way. You can get your copy pre-order today at osmompreneur.com. Proceeds from the sale of this book go to scholarships for the Women's Business School, because we are all about lifting others up and giving women the skills that they need to create successful businesses. Well, thank you so much to everybody who's joined us today watching live, everyone watching the recording, and to our wonderful authors we've heard from today, Lisa Walker, Megan Harrison, Judy Chungwood, and Helen Waite. It's been wonderful chatting with each of you. And thank you so much. We will see you all again next time. Bye for now.